All right. Now, there are a few things. This topic is marketing mix variables. A part of the marketing mix variables, the promotional mix, the 4P, the fourth P of our core marketing mix variable. Okay. So we discussed product price placements. Now this is the last one that we are going to discuss, promotional mix. Okay. Now the term promotion is actually comes from the Latin word promoviere. Okay, so I don't know whether I pronounce it correctly. If you have Latin background and you find my pronunciation is wrong, well, my apologies unintentionally. Okay, what it means is actually to move forward. Okay, so that's what promotion means. Okay. Now, in the context of marketing, when we move forward one thing to the other party, right? One thing from one party to the other party, this will involve communication. Okay. So that is the reason why the essence of promotion is communication. Okay. Since we talk about it in the context of marketing, so that becomes marketing communication. Okay, so that is the reason why the term promotional mix has become marketing communication mix. Okay, and I noticed that a lot of businesses have changed their business function from promotion department to marketing communication department. Okay, so previously it was labeled as promotion manager. Now it is marketing communication manager. Okay, so that's the reason why we have that. Okay, now and then we have actually essentially people can argue whether product placement is part of the advertising or not. Okay, but essentially there are 5 tools. Okay, there are 5 major tools in marketing communication. We have the advertising. Okay, we have the my apologies. We have the advertising. Where's my writing? Okay. We have the advertising. We have the sales promotion. Okay, and we have the PR, public relations. Okay, personal selling, and the last one that is interesting and is in growing trend in terms of usage is direct digital marketing. Okay, so there are the 5 major tools that marketers can consider. Now, the thing is, when we use these tools, okay, we want to ensure that we convey consistent and compelling message for the customers. Okay, that's actually leading us to the word integrated. Therefore, we say integrated marketing. We have relabeled it to integrated marketing communication. Okay, so hopefully with this, we are all familiar. Where does the word IMC or integrated marketing communication comes from? Okay, from promotion to IMC, integrated marketing communication. Okay, so yeah, they're the ones that we tried to discuss briefly tonight. After that, we jump into the 3rd assessments. Yeah, okay. So far, any questions? Please feel free to stop me if you have questions, and we'll jump to we'll discuss your questions. Okay. All right. So. What was that? Okay, all right. I'll just mute your video, and if you need to discuss something, just unmute yourself. Okay. Okay. Now that's marketing communications or IMC, integrated marketing communication. Now let's look at them briefly. Okay. So what is IMC or promotional mix? Okay. So I'm expecting that. Because we have discussed a bit of historical background why a promotion becomes IMC, I do expect that when we use the term IMC, everyone is familiar with it. Okay. Okay. So it is. Well, people say that it is actually a specific blend, okay, of promotional tools or communication tools, if you like, to build and maintain the relationship with the customers. Remember, in module 1, we discussed that the essence of marketing is to build the relationship in the exchange process with the customers. All right. So since it is the essence, okay, so the IMC or anything that we work, any activities that we develop in marketing, actually in the context of building relationship with the customers. Okay. So the IMC is actually a specific blend, okay, a unique blend that we design in marketing management to build and to communicate to the customers, so we can build and maintain relationship with the customers. Okay, right. So that's IMC in a nutshell. Okay. All right. I'm going to skip that now. Let's look at the word communication briefly. Okay. The word communication comes from the Latin word again. Okay. Communis. Okay. That means commoners. Okay, so that means commonness. Okay, so that's communication. Okay, so why is that? Well, look, if we have two parties, okay, in communication we have at least two parties. Okay, let's say we have A, right, and then the other one is B. If they are engaged in the communication, okay, they actually create the commonness here. All right, the common background, the common ground between the two. Okay, so that's the reason why we say commonness. Okay, so essentially we have sender and we have receiver. Okay, the sender is basically the party sending message to another party, and when they do that, they encode. Okay, which is basically the process of translating the IDs into the process of translating the IDs into language, into symbols. Okay, that's the encoding process that happens in the sender side. Okay, and then the message itself contains symbols that the sender transmits to convey the message. So the receiver will receive that. Okay, well, we discussed about the drop-in session, and that was my message. But then the receiver actually decodes the message, which is basically translating back the symbol into ID. Okay, and when I said if I'm allowed to use that example again, it was considered as, okay, I must go to campus. Oh, hang on a second, I did not mean to go to campus. Okay, then we actually communicate or converse the IDs. Okay, until we get the agreement. So we get the commonness in between the two. Okay, and the media is actually channels that we use to ensure that we can communicate. Yeah. Right, so that's basically communication in a nutshell. And the other thing that I would like to highlight is, let's have a look at the next one here. Okay, decoding, that's what we discussed. Feedback is another element, another important element. Okay, we send a message, we give feedback, we receive feedback, and so on and so forth until we create a larger commonness between the two. Okay. Now, it is also important in the communication model, we acknowledge the concept noise, which is basically any disruption in the communication process. Okay. The disruption in here could be any. It could be at the sender level, where the sender in marketing communication concept, the sender may not be able to translate the objectives clearly, so they have a wrong message to be sent to the receivers. All right, or they may have distortion in terms of the brand ambassador. You may recall that top brands such as Nike changed their brand ambassadors from let's say they used to sign a tennis player, and then when they found the tennis player had issues with the ethical related to the some ethics, they changed the brand ambassador, right? So that is considered as the disruption or noise at the sender level. Okay. The noise may also happen to at the receiver level, where the receiver may have distraction to the message that has been conveyed. All right, either because competitors send similar messages, or the sender may have different priorities. Okay, so that's noise. All right. Right, so this is the communication process in a nutshell. We have the sender, receiver, medium, and encoding and decoding process, and feedback, and also noise. Okay, so you can find it in your e-text. Make sure that you go through the e-text. Okay, right. Look. That's basically the communication process, and like any other promotional topics, we have a message that that may revolve around using the rational appeal, emotional appeal, moral appeal, for instance, saying what is right or wrong, or this is actually you are actually obliged, morally to do it, for instance. Okay. Now, let's look at the objectives of the promotion. Like any other business functions, business activities, we also have objectives. Okay, promotional objectives may include the awareness, or stimulating demand, or encouraging product trial, identifying prospects, okay, or retain loyal customers, and so on and so forth. There are a set of possible objectives of the promotion. Okay, if you look at that is actually you can group them into several levels, such as the at awareness level or cognitive level. The other one is at the action level or behavioral level. Okay, through trying the new product, or at making creating sales, for instance, sales increase, for instance. Okay, at behavioral level. Okay, right. So that's basically promotion in a nutshell. Okay, and if you go back to promotion again, as a concept, overall promotion, some scholars also suggest the concepts of push and pull promotional strategies. Well, push is basically focusing the promotional activities on the resellers. Okay, they focus the promotional activities to the onto the resellers. How we expect the resellers will push that back to the consumers. Okay, whilst in the context of pull, we actually focus the marketing activities on the final consumers or end consumers. Okay, so here we create demand. Okay, through advertising campaign or consumer promotional activities. And eventually we pull the consumers to the resellers to create demand, and eventually the resellers will create demand. Okay. Now this is interesting because in today's business landscape, the concept push and pull may be merged in today's business landscape because of the digital media that marketers have been using. Okay. With the digital media, we actually create a community. Right, community of our brand's community. All right, that includes ourselves, the producers or the marketers, and also the consumers. Right, so we are engaged. We blend with the consumers in the community that we create in the digital space. Right, in the convergent approach to marketing communication strategies. Okay, with that, actually the concept push and pull is a bit blurred because are we pushing it, are we pulling it? All right, so but we are actually engaged with them. Okay, so but as a concept, that's what push and pull mean in terms of focus. Which one is our focus? Okay, and in some instances, as mentioned before, we may get engaged with the customers directly through the digital marketing campaign. Okay? Okay, now let's look at them briefly. Look at the major tools briefly. The first one is advertising. This is how we define advertising. So if you, on your assessment, if you outline a brief definition on the key concepts, that's brilliant. that is brilliant, okay, and then you explain, okay. Please also explain the specific activities that you intend to do, that you propose to do in your marketing plan, okay. For your assessment 3, let's say here, advertising, we can use TV, radio, okay, newspaper, and so on and so forth. Now, it is arguably that internet, some people argue that internet should not be under advertising campaign, it should go under direct digital marketing campaign, because anything under advertising is basically going back to the traditional format of the media. Okay, whilst the digital ones basically focus on using the internet. Okay. All right. So there are the steps in terms of developing the advertising campaign. I'm not going to discuss that with you step by step. Okay. But obviously, we also have the evaluation in terms of the advertising campaign. Okay. Now we also know the terms target audience, which is basically the group of people that we expect to be exposed with our message, okay, either advertising message or any message that we design in our campaign. Okay. Now let's look at the next one. The other critical decision in advertising is the budgets, and there are several approaches in terms of budgeting. We have the percentage of sales approach, objective and task competition, matching or competitive parity approach, and the other one is arbitrary approach. Okay, some other scholars also add with the other approach, the all you can afford. Okay, approach. All right. Now, percentage of sales approach is quite simple. We just need to have two numbers, right? The sales projection or last year's sales and the percentage that the company has agreed as the policy for their advertising and promotional budget. So if their sales is $100 million, normally $100 million, and they say, well, for advertising and promotional budget, we always spend 5%, then, with these two numbers, that will generate $5 million for advertising spend, for instance. Easy, right? And then the objective and task approach is basically looking at advertising and promotional budget as part of a strategy, right? So they look at the objectives of marketing, and then they translate the objectives of marketing into promotional objectives, right? From there, they are going to decide which tasks that they need to deliver to deliver the promotional objectives. And each task basically requires them to spend a certain amount of money. And that will generate the promotional budgets, okay, or advertising and promotional budgets, okay. And the next one is competitive parity approach, which is basically matching the competitors, right? Normally, the companies who basically in the leadership position, and they feel their territory is under threat, so they would do anything to fight back, okay. And the last one is the arbitrary approach, which is basically, at top level, it is decided, right? In my observation, percentage of sales is quite popular, more medium to large companies, because it is easy to use and it helps them protecting their profits, okay? Because when they say our policy is to spend 5 cents, that means it has been calculated that at 5% marketing spend, it helps them protecting their bottom line or the profit. Okay. Now the thing is, there are issues with percentage of sales approach. From practical perspective, percentage of sales approach requires marketing management to keep adjusting their spending. Okay. Well, the projection, the sales projection that they do is still in the crystal ball. Based on their experience, okay, I think we are going to make $100 million again this year, right? Well, what about after 6 months, they only make $30 or $40 million, and they are projecting to have less than $100 million, then they need to adjust the marketing spend, okay? And the second issue with percentage of sales approach is at principal level, advertising spend is considered as not as the trigger to create sales, but it is the kind of objectives of sales, okay? Now, to, well, let's say, let me to explain this, probably let me ask you this question. Why do we advertise? Well, simple, because we want to achieve sales, right, eventually, okay? With percentage of sales, we reverse the logic, okay? We can advertise if we have sales. We can advertise if we have sales. Okay, so we reverse the logic. Okay, which is basically again, against the logic of promotional activities. Okay, so from here, actually, the objective and task approach is probably the ideal method for marketers, because budgeting is considered as a strategic decision. Right, we incorporate the budgeting decision into our strategic thinking. Right. Okay. What about small business? How do they do the budgeting? Well, they actually refer to what we call as affordable method, right? So they look at affordability method. Okay, they look at how much they make. Okay, let's say in a year they make $10 million, and they look at all costs, including the wages, the profit that they want to retain, and so on and so forth, and they look at the leftover, right? Well, we still have, let's say, $10,000, right? That $10,000 will go to the advertising promotional campaign, okay? Right, so that's basically budgeting for promotion. Okay, now I just want to briefly show you that the other decision that we need to make is the media. Okay, please specify your media as well when it comes to advertising decision. Okay, which media that you plan to use, either newspaper, magazine, radio, and so on and so forth. Okay. And the second decision that we need to make is actually the message. Okay, when we work with the advertising agency, we expect them to deliver two things: message and media. Okay, so I'm not going to discuss that in more detail. Okay, but normally the message is linked back to the brand that we want to build. Okay, what kind of brand that we want to build? So that helps us to understand what kind of copy that we want to put in, the artwork, the illustrations, and so on and so forth, the color, the tonality of the wording, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's the type of thing that our agency will help us. Okay, all right, now. The other thing that I'd like to discuss is basically the product placement briefly. The product placement is actually, some scholars argue that this is part of advertising campaign. Product placement is actually as simple as placing the product or locating the product in the program, incorporated in the program. Okay, so if you watch, let's say, Dancing with the Stars or any other movies, and they talk about a brand, so you could argue that it is a product placement. Okay, so if you work, for argument's sake, for Coke, for instance, and you place your cup Coke of Coke or can of Coke, right, on the judge's desk, for instance, then actually you are doing product placements. Right? Now, why product placements? Well, you may recall that when it comes to advertising, when you watch TV and and suddenly you have the advertising commercial break, what would you do? Well, you switch channel, yeah, or you go to the pantry or bathroom. All right, but if you incorporate or embed the your product in the program, then you can't delete that. Okay, now, and you may also recall. James Bond movie, for instance, Daniel Craig in the, for instance, the Casino Royale. If you watch that footage, they are on the train. Daniel Craig with Eva Green on the train. They talk about money and so on and so forth before they go to the casino. One of the discussion was the watch. Is that Rolex? No, Omega. Okay, so product placements. Okay, so there are a couple of examples of product placement. Okay. All right, PR. PR is interesting because the intention of PR is actually to help build the goodwill of the brand or the company. Okay, it also helps raising the awareness. It also helps reaching the target audience. Now, you may recall that in the case of advertising, the audience have the tendency of avoiding advertising campaign and also avoiding salesman or salesperson approaching them. PR is perfect in terms of reaching these guys who have the tendency of avoiding promotional messages, right? Because in the case of PR, we get someone else, in this instance, the journalist, to talk about us. So it has high credibility. The issue with PR is that it is beyond our control whether the journalist will write it for us or whether, whatever message that they want to write. It is beyond our control. Okay, right. So that's a bit of tools in terms of PR. We can use news release or getting the events and celebrity endorsement, for instance, to help us boosting the brand. Okay, right. Now let's look at the sponsorship is also part of the tool, by the way. You can also use that to help you boosting your message. The next thing that I'd like to discuss briefly is the personal selling. Now, personal selling is different to the advertising in the sense that personal selling has a higher level of personalization. Okay, we have the opportunity to build the more interactive communication with the consumers. All right, with personal selling. Now, depends on the company. A lot of companies may call the personal selling team differently. Some companies may label them as sales force or salesperson. The other company may label them as the marketing executive, account executive, sales engineers, right? So in short, they do sales job, and when we say they do sales job, they actually do two things: selling and maintain relationship with the customers. Because of the interaction at personal level, we can adjust our message to suit the need of the customers. Okay, we can in fact create a demo, right? If it is needed by our customers. Okay. All right, and I'm not going to discuss that in more detail. Please go through it. Now, the other thing, this is the other one that I'd like to discuss with you: sales promotion. Sales promotion actually has gained a stronger momentum in terms of usage in marketing practices. Okay. There are a number of reasons why sales promotion, which is basically defined as a short-term incentive to create a short-term sales result, okay, or sales increase, if you like. The reasons why sales promotion has gained stronger momentum is there are a number of reasons, right? The first one is the market out there is getting more and more competitive. The market is getting more and more competitive. If you only depend on advertising campaigns, it's not enough to make your brand stands out in the market. So you need to be creative, therefore you create sales promotional activities. Okay. Second, there is a growing trend where the management has become more and more sensitive in terms of using resources. Okay. Now, if we go back to advertising, okay. If you go back to advertising, why do we advertise? Well, we eventually expect to achieve sales or increase sales, right? Well, the question is, if I ask this question to you, when you watch a new advertising campaign, would you jump off the couch, your couch, and buy the product? Well, not necessarily. Okay. Well, that is the reason why we label advertising as creating what we call as pre-sale condition. Okay, pre-sale condition. What are they? Well, it is to create awareness, it is to create the image, and it is to influence behavior. Right? So we expect when people may not need the product when they watch the advertising campaign that we launch. Okay, but we expect they will recall when it comes to needs of this product. They will recall these things: the awareness, the brand image, right, to influence the behavior, so they will buy the product. Okay. Now, if you look at that, it takes a bit long for advertising to create sales, right? Not necessarily, okay? Well, sometimes advertising creates instant sales, but sometimes it doesn't, okay? So, well, if that is the case, then as a marketer, we also know that we need to balance the need of longer-term objective, such as building the brand image, and also short-term objective, which is basically meeting the sales and profit goals of the company. All right, and especially the top management have become aware that the resources have become more and more sensitive. Okay, they need to show that any dollar that they spend, it contributes to the achievement of sales or a financial objective. Okay, that's the reason why the sales promotion has gained momentum here. Okay, there are a number of reasons as well, but the third important reasons I'd like to highlight to you is the growing power of the retailers, right? If you work in the fast-moving consumer goods, the retailers have gained more stronger and stronger power actually in the consumer goods industry. All right. If you look at the consumer goods industry, there are two major retailers, three major retailers: Woolworths, Coles, and Aldi, basically. Because of that kind of market structure, right, the manufacturers basically depend on the retailers. All right. So you may recall that if the suppliers, some of the suppliers, farmers basically shout whether, whoa, okay, I'm not making profits, selling milk to these guys. Okay, so they are the reasons why sales promotion has gained stronger momentum in especially in markets like Australia. Okay, all right. Look, can I suggest that we stop the meeting now and come back to the meeting? Give me 2-3 minutes and come back to this meeting room, because by clicking the same link, because my time is ticking. Is that okay? Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I'll see you in the next couple of minutes. Yeah. All right. Thanks.